Welcome to PowerTalks, wise words from wise women. In this video series, women at the top of their game share their experience and their wisdom with you. I'm thrilled to have with me as my guest today, Nicole Burdette. Nicole is currently the president of Southern California Land and Housing at Brookfield Properties and has over 20 years of experience in the land development and home building industry. So Nicole, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks, Janet. I'm really looking forward to our chat today.
So I want to start out, as I usually do, by hearing a little bit about your leadership journey. I know we all have a story, so can you share a little bit about your leadership story and how you got to be where you are today?
Sure. I've been at Brookfield since 2000, and I actually started as the receptionist. And I graduated college and had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I started here at Brookfield as a receptionist, really fell in love with the company and the culture, and worked across many different facets of our business before coming into this role. So really what I would say about my journey from receptionist to this role is it was not vertical. I had a lot of stops along the way that grew the breadth of my experience and understanding of our business, and really fell in love with our business along the way.
Talk to me a little bit about what you learned as you went along this journey, because obviously there's a lot of learning, and you're at one of the top roles in the company, right? So talk a little bit about what you learned about
So really
your career.
some of my big takeaways for myself, and I think things like this are really great because it forces you to reflect, and it forces you to try and help pass on your journey with others because they can learn from that as well. So what I have really learned is there's no clear straight path. But I do know that it starts with working on yourself, and a little bit of that is being really self-aware, really not being hard on yourself, but understanding what things might get in your way from leading others. And leading is really about others, and it's really about finding joy in others' success. And so I think starting on working on yourself is one of the things that I would say is a lesson learned for me. I also focused on, and in looking back, being intentional on building from each experience. And I think it's important to look at experiences as just that, not positive or negative per se, but really what can you take from the experience to help you help others in the future. One thing that that I also think helped me along this path, and what I've learned is getting comfortable with being vulnerable is really important. I think many people, especially high performers, are really focused on perfection and their outward view, how others view them. And I think it's really, for me, it was really important. And that was something that I struggled with, is wanting everything to be perfect. And that's not reality. Getting comfortable, and that's not really what people want from a leader, right? They want to be able to connect on how they're the same. And so by being vulnerable, that gives that opportunity. And we didn't get into my full story, but I think there is a piece that's really part of my journey that is a takeaway that will help others. And it's really recognizing what is not a good fit for you. Sometimes we get asked the question, what do you want to do? What do you aspire to do? And really, that can be difficult to have others help you along the way. But talking about what's not a good fit, or what are the parts of your role that don't bring you the most joy. We all do things every day that are, some are the highest parts of our day and some are the lowest, but really understanding that where you want to go and where you want to build is on the parts that bring the joy. And we can all always sustain a portion of the mundane or the redundant, right?
Yeah.
So I had a conversation early on in my career at Brookfield with my manager at the time, and she was in marketing and I was working as a marketing administrator, and we were chatting, and I think at that point my work ethic had really shown through. But what we chatted about was, gosh, marketing doesn't seem like your second nature for you, or it doesn't seem like that's your fit. What was one of your favorite classes in college? And we started talking through that, and I started talking about how I really enjoyed statistics. And it was like a light bulb went off for her, and she's like, okay, well, let's find a role when there's a business need. Let's find a role for you that maybe expands on that, because marketing is not necessarily, and by marketing in our industry in home building at the time, it was very much about model merchandising and design, which isn't the first part of my brain that works well. So I think I think taking away and being open to, hey, what's not a good fit? That's okay. Like, just keep exploring. I think, I said it a little bit earlier, but make everyone around you better. Like that is really what leadership is. And so it's got to be less about you and more about everyone else. And that really was a big tipping point for me through school. There's a lot of personal achievements, right? And so it was a mind shift that, gosh, life got so much more fun when I flipped that, because there's so much more when you're invested in others and their success than when it's just about you. Overall, I would say, positions and titles do not bring joy. So that is not it. The title is not what's going to make you happy at the end of the day. And if it is, you're probably going to struggle to lead others. So I would kind of sum it up as, work ethic, work on yourself, and be vulnerable.
Wow. There are so many pearls in what you just said, right? So many pearls of wisdom. I don't even know which one to grab onto. One of the things that seems to be a theme as you talk is this whole notion of self-awareness. And, we talk about that when, I teach leadership and I coach people, and that's one of the first things we talk about is, becoming more self-aware, et cetera. But how did you do that? How do you become more self-aware? Because again, like you said, we are socialized in an achievement culture, right? And it's
Hmm.
about what I do, instead of pausing and who am I being while I'm
Hmm.
doing these things, right? And so that's part of the self-awareness you're talking about. Can you talk a
I
little more about that?
Sure. So I think, and I don't want to get too deep, but I think that we all have life experiences that shape us, right? And so for me, I think a turning point of being more self-aware and being more comfortable being self-aware, because being self-aware means you are acknowledging, the not just the highs of yourself, but also the areas that you need to work on. And so I think for me, I had a kind of a life experience that took me to seek out therapy. And through that, I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about some of those life experiences up to that point in my, early 20s that could be affecting how I feel about myself and how I'm able to lead others, or how I'm able to work through different situations. And so for me, that was really uncovering, getting comfortable with the parts that aren't as fun and positive, but to understand those and to get comfortable with them, and know that I think that's when I truly started understanding that life's a journey, and it is not perfect, and that's okay. It's much better for it to be real and to acknowledge things than hold on to them.
No, I love that you share that, Nicole, and thank you for sharing that, because I do think that, this is a struggle for many leaders in general, right? And people in general, not just leaders, but, and women, especially women, right? That are have this notion of perfection. And you mentioned that a lot. You mentioned that, and I hear that so much, is that, I've got to be perfect. I've got to prove my worthiness. I have to be on my game all the time. I can't make a mistake. And so that comes out, it's me, me, me. It's all
Mhm.
about me. And
Yep.
so again, as you say, there's a piece of, there doesn't leave enough space for other people.
Mhm.
And really, leading is about bringing out the best in others. And so acknowledging some of your own blind spots or
Mhm.
liabilities is a big piece of that. So I really thank you for, I mean, that could be a whole
That
conversation.
could be a whole conversation,
Yeah.
but I'd say
Yeah.
that probably experience
Yeah.
helped me when I was given the opportunity to through Brookfield to meet with a career coach. That experience of exploring myself through that period in personal therapy really helped me understand, some of the things that might block me from growing my influence on our business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the thing, is we're all a work in progress, right? And you can be a president. I mean, I work with people at the highest levels, and it's whenever you stop learning or stop getting feedback, there's a problem.
Mhm.
Because none of us are ever going to get to this place of, I'm here I am, I'm so perfect, I don't need
Yeah.
any things. Now let me shift gears for a second, because I know, we have limited time. I deal with this a lot because I work with a lot of women executives, and I hear about this, but I've also read a lot about this, and I study this. Is there was a 2020 report that came out just recently by KPMG, and it was from their Women's Leadership Summit. And they found, they did these interviews with all these women executives, and they found that 75% of female executives have experienced what is known as the imposter syndrome. And, at some point in their careers. And really, imposter syndrome, to make it kind of simple, it manifests as feeling either unworthy or having feelings of, I'm a fraud, I don't belong in this position, or just extreme self-doubt, inadequacy, etc. And there's different degrees of it, right? But can you talk a little bit about any experiences of self-doubt you've had over the years, obviously going through all of
This
these, and how you've overcome
this
that?
this is a huge one for me. So I don't have the gender obstacle that I've had to overcome here, but the imposter syndrome has just been a huge part of my story and my work on myself. So I was so relieved. I think it was probably in the 2008, 2009. Someone recommended a book to me. I can't even remember which one it was. I read this and I was so relieved when I realized how normal this feeling was. And
I know we
especially
all are
for
when we
women,
when
I
we
was like,
when we
oh
see
my
this. It's
gosh,
like, oh my goodness, it's not just me,
I
right?
had no idea. And I had no idea how much stress it was really causing me. And I think it creeps back in all the time for me. Sometimes an opportunity comes across, or we're working on a deal, and I'm like, I am not qualified to be doing this. Like, why am I in this seat? And those thoughts, I don't know that they'll ever go away. But I think what's helped me the most is acknowledging and understanding that this is a real thing, and reading about, what it really comes from, and understanding that, as well as talking to other people about it. So I think I've been so fortunate to have such supportive leaders and a trusting organization that I know in my heart that I wouldn't be put in a place where I was not set up to succeed, or I was not able to do something. And so that's a big part of it for me, of my self-talk, right? Is I would not be sitting here if if someone did not believe that I was able to do this. And so trying to gain a little bit of perspective there, remind myself that others that this is a normal reaction, and let's talk about some points, and try to focus on whatever that instance of imposter syndrome is, focus on some points for myself that say, no, these are experiences that really set you up for this challenge. And so that, and then I look at it on the flip side, it also keeps you moving forward too, right? So if you're ever comfortable and you're not feeling that, it's like, are you growing? And and for me, that's a big part of what motivates me, is just the growth of challenging myself. I've kind of flipped that imposter syndrome to say, if I'm not having it, am I really getting into uncomfortable situations?
It's interesting. I mean, I could talk to you all day long about this topic. I've been doing a lot of research on it. It's a big topic. I run into it all the time, men and women, but especially with women executives. And so, that's a conversation by itself, right? The imposter syndrome, because there's so much. But I will say, there's something there that you talked about, and you talked about it earlier too. And just making the connection that being uncomfortable and feeling okay with being uncomfortable. You talked about that earlier, but that's a big piece of the imposter syndrome, is when you're out of your comfort zone. I'm not perfect, I'm learning, etc. And learning to sit in that space. And I love the way you kind of described that, is that, just learning to sit there and be there. So yeah, another conversation, but great advice. Yeah, I love it.
I think anyone who I think today it has much more visibility, right? So that's great. I think with the access that we have to so many more podcasts and things and chats like this that weren't really prevalent back in when I started having that symptom, I'll call it.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing about that is, like you talk about the access, what's happened is it's become more normalized. So it's not just me, because I think when we sit with those feelings, I'm the only one feeling this way. And when you see other people, it's like, oh, wow. Okay. So it normalizes it a little bit. So as we close, right, because we could be talking about these things. I mean, it's so rich.
It's so fun.
And I know they're just like little tiny sound bites, but what parting words of wisdom would you give to women who are trying to find their own leadership voice?
So this is I love this, and someone on our team actually challenged me. You should come up with your top 10 words of wisdom. I've been working on it. I'm not there yet. I don't like it yet, but I think I have a few, and I think it's so important to be flexible in the opportunities that are presented to you. Work ethic is not debatable, something I said earlier. Be sure you're having fun. Titles are meaningless if you don't love going to work every day. And trust your gut. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to make decisions that aren't fully informed. And I have learned that my gut does not let me down. And even if it's not the right call, it was the right call at the time. And so we can learn from that. And then make sure you care. If you don't care, it's going to be really, really hard to have a voice, because that will show through.
Such words of wisdom from a wise woman. Thank you so much, Nicole, for doing
You're
this
welcome.
today.
My
There's
pleasure.
so many pieces of wisdom in here to peel back. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Janet. Appreciate your time.